if you have a client and they just cannot get out of their posterior pelvic floor, they're always engaging or they're constantly clenching their glutes, I like to start here with some footwork. We're going to start at your client's usual footwork settings. So for me, that's 1-on-1 with the stopper and gear bar all the way forward. So it's really key for this one to be mindful of where their pelvis is sitting. Let's see if we can look at that a little better. So for someone that's clenching, they're going to be in this tilted position, or maybe they start off neutral, but then as soon as they press, they go into that posterior tilt, or they grip the back, and then they let it go. So this is something that I see often, where they tip and then release, or sometimes they just stay here the whole time. So what do I do about that? What I like to say is cue them to make sure that they're keeping the hands flat on the pelvis. Can they feel the difference between being tipped back? So you may want to start with some pelvic rocking, which is kind of a natural way for them to explore the range of motion that's available to them. And then tell them, like, hey, we're going to maintain a little bit of space underneath the lumbar spine. I've heard in the Pilates world, just enough room to pass a blueberry underneath if we're making sure that there's a little bit of core activation. We're not looking for like a full imprint. We're looking for truly a neutral spine. So for some people that might be more than a blueberry. And we're going to think of finding that deep core activation without gripping. So can they maintain that to press out? If that is still really challenging, then I actually have them explore their range and break it down. So from here, we're going to go into like a full pelvic tilt or a full rounding of the lumbar spine, and making sure we're putting a number on it. So let's say that this is 100. I'm going to have them break it down from 100 to 50 to 0, and then back again. So 0 to 50 to 100, right? Do they know where they're at? Can they put markers on just how much tipping that they're doing or just how much clenching that they're doing? So once they've got that, we can turn this into a hip roll. You're going to come into starting at 0, finding 50 or even 25, and then 50, 75, and then 100, and then lifting it up from there. Keep containing that little bit of a tip to come back down, landing at 100, letting go to 75, 50, 25, and then 0. So really breaking it down for them, finding that body schema or that homunculus or that map or that patterning in their brains is so important. Because lying down or supine, as we all know, is the easiest way to find and release the pelvic floor because everything else is relaxed. So making sure that this is really nailed down is super important before you transition them from, sitting to kneeling to walking or whatever it may be. So coming up into a hip roll, lifting all the way up. You can add a little press. Coming back up, hinge, hinge, hinge to release, and then coming back down through the full range. If that's really easy, you can also add a little bit of internal rotation here. So again, encouraging the sit bones to be nice and wide, that pelvic outlet internal rotation, making sure there's a little bit of adductor squeeze, and then coming in nice and wide. So another way to encourage that posterior floor to let go is going into single leg. So now that they've nailed it down with 2 legs, can they do it with 1? So we're going to have 1 leg into tabletop. We're going to think of this glute turning on to come out, and then letting go nice and wide to come back in without losing this position. So can they stay neutral at 0 to press out, and then 0 all the way back in, and then switch sides. So it can be really tricky, but generally find I don't take more than maybe 1 session to explain that to them. The Reformer really makes finding neutral really, really easy. There's so much closed chain feedback from the Reformer that it is very successful.